morning. I am Technical Sergeant Samuel Hahn, part of the 316th Training Squadron, and we would like to invite you to our lesson of Wingman. We will be discussing some main points, such as even leaders need a teammate, as well as Wingman 365. During this conversation, we're going to invite some wingmen, some airmen here in technical training, to discuss on specific matters of the wingman concept. So before we begin, I would like to kind of go over the overview of what the purpose of this wingman lesson is. Now, our airmen that join the Air Force go through basic military training, and that concept is Airman 100. As they learn the tools in basic military training, they come to technical training and continue that success, continue to reach even more goals that you guys set, and find that success in your Air Force career. So I gave you cards to fill out with some basic information. What I would like to do is kind of get to know each other before we discuss some of the concepts of wingmen. So we'll begin with myself. I am Technical Sergeant Samuel Hahn. I am a 1 in 3, which is a Korean cryptologic language analyst. So I major in a language, and the language of choice is Korean. I joined in April 2006, so I've been in over 14 years, and I'm from California. All right? You want to begin, Airman Fouché?
Sure. I'm Airman First Class Benjamin Fouché. I'm a signals intelligence analyst, and I joined the Air Force in April 2020, and I'm from Alabama.
Okay.
Hello, I am Airman Basic Stephanie Snodgrass. I'm also a signals intelligence analyst. I joined in April of 2020, and I'm from California.
So 2 from California and 1 from Alabama. Right, you're kind of overwhelmed right there.
Sorry.
I want you to remember this, the information that we've shared with one another, because it's going to mean something towards the end, okay? The first main point, even leaders need a teammate. What does that truly mean? Well, according to our lesson, we need to define what a wingman is. The Air Force has identified the wingman concept as a promise, a pledge, and a commitment between airmen, which means, simply put, we have to take care of one another as a team. And that's why the importance of teammate matters. Now, based on our ranks, we have different levels, correct?
Yes, sir.
As a technical sergeant, we have specific guidance in our specific rank, such that you guys also have in your own ranks. Now, I have some booklets here that a lot of airmen should be exposed to, but must know about to be successful in their Air Force career. The enlisted force structure defines each tier of airmen, such as the junior enlisted, the non-commissioned officer, and then the senior non-commissioned officer tiers, as well as the role that you play and the responsibilities that you have in your individual ranks. So let me just let me read the junior enlisted responsibilities so that you have an understanding. Have you been exposed to this before?
The structure, yes, sir.
The structure?
Yes, sir.
And where at?
Basic military training.
And BMT?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember what they told you?
Well, we had to memorize it.
Oh, you did have to memorize it?
Yes, we did.
Do you still remember it?
Yes. So there's junior enlisted airmen, NCOs, and senior NCOs. So you want the whole?
The junior enlisted category. Do you know what the...
Yes, sir. So there's Airman Basic, which is my rank, and then you're an airman, and then you're an Airman First Class, and then a senior airman.
Okay, and then continuing on, the junior enlisted airmen initially focus on adapting to the military requirements. That's what you learned in basic military training. And you will continue to learn that and comprehend it and master it while you're in technical school and your operational units that you PCS to. You're going to learn your job, your occupational proficiency, which is what you guys are here for, and how to be highly productive members. So that's just some of the responsibilities that you have as airmen. Now, focusing on military requirements, being a part of professional of arms, and achieving occupational proficiency. How does that relate to wingmen? So I want you to think. Think about what you do on duty and what you do off duty, because we're going to talk about that later on. Figure out some times throughout your transition into the Air Force, although it may be short for now, but to realize from what you learned in basic military training and when you got here at technical training, how those concepts are applied in this environment. Because I'm sure the environment has changed since you've left basic military training. Probably don't have to do chow runner or wait for someone to knock on your barracks door and figure out who it is and give reporting statements every single time you speak to someone. In the technical training environment, you can get away with sir, ma'am, or sergeant so-and-so, or airman so-and-so. Whereas in basic military training, it was a little bit more formalized. Correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So the question that I have for you, and this is where I want some honest answers and honest feedback, is what type of discipline is missing from technical training that you saw in basic military training? And I'll give you a minute or two to think about that. And as I continue, there's a lot of things that are different in basic military training as well as in technical training. And it will be even more different as you PCS to your operational units. The things that you learn, you have to adopt those principles so that you can have a successful career. And even to this day, as you know that I joined in April 2006, the 14 years that I've been serving in active duty, there's a lot more that I have to adapt to and adopt principles so that I can be successful and be where I am today. So I want you to provide one significant change between basic military training and technical training that you see that the wingman concept has improved.
I think one big change I've seen is at basic, everything that you have to do is kind of spoon-fed to you. Like they tell you every little move they want you to make. Whereas here they expect you to keep up with what you're responsible for. They kind of leave it into your hands. And then at basic, if you get in trouble, you're probably going to get yelled at and do push-ups or something. But here, the discipline's more, I guess, kind of on your record, it's more serious. So it's more like in your hands to make sure that you're doing the right thing, which makes having a wingman even more important because you need to look out for each other and make sure that your wingmen are doing the right thing. Like I have a friend that I graduated with, and we're in the same building. And so every time I see his name listed on the DAN, I let him know, it's his job to check it, but, he may have missed it one day or forgot about it. So always make sure that he sees it and he's at the right place at the right time,
Exactly. You know what that word is? Accountability. Accountability is so crucial and critical to the success of someone's career. And accountability is not just personal accountability. It's also a wingman helping someone be accountable as well, right?
Right.
Now for you, outside of accountability, what are some other ways that you've seen wingmen have evolved to something better as you got here?
So at basic training, our entire days are completely micromanaged. Like we are told everything we need to do and we're always being watched. But at tech school, you're just expected, you're held to this standard, but you're expected to always do the right thing. They don't tell you how to, have your end of bed display though. Like they don't tell you those things. So you're expected to just keep things organized and exercise on your own. You're expected to do all of that on your own. So, and you go from living with, regularly 50 people, but in our case, about 30 people, to having one roommate that you have to live with, though, and you have to learn how to compromise certain things because you're living with someone all the time. So you I know in my case, I always look out for my roommate. Like, we'll take turns taking out the trash in our room and keeping things clean, and we motivate each other to work out because you have to. You're expected to do this on your own now. So it's important to just look out for each other and kind of be like family in a way.
So there's some keywords that she said that I want to hit on. So first one is compromise. Compromise is one of the key success that you need to master to be a good wingman for one another, because each of us have individual thoughts, feelings, perspectives, and biases to a situation, whether it's happening to us or happening to someone else. But in order to be a good wingman, you have to compromise. The second one is family. Family is important. We all swore in to the Air Force. We all joined the Air Force, and we have to view this as a family. Just like a brother, a sister, a mom, dad, a relative, a distant relative. You have to be there for one another, just like you would for your own family members. So it's vital that we treat each other like family so that we tell each other and let each other know that we are there for one another. That is important in the Air Force because it provides that support aspect. So accountability, compromise, family, and support are some of the ways that you as an airman, big A, to include myself, are being a wingman for one another. And now, I'll hit on leaders. Why does a leader need a teammate? Well, who knows the concept, a good leader is a good follower? Have you heard that before?
Yes, sir.
So if you can't follow someone, what makes you a good leader to lead people? So think about that. A leader needs people to lead. That concept of leading, which means you need followers, correct? Well, if a leader cannot rely on their teammates or their followers for success, then they're going to go down the deep end and not fulfill the goal or the mission that they are tasked to do, the objective that they have, correct? So, for example, if we all had to clean this room, and I, as the member in the leadership position, have tasked y'all to clean this room, but I don't give you guidance. I don't tell you what I'm expecting, how clean it should be, the way it should be arranged, then you're not going to be able to fulfill my expectations, correct? But if I'm there with you as a wingman and helping you understand what I'm expecting you to do, that shows that we are a team. That makes sense?
Yes, sir.
So it's important, it's crucial that leaders also need teammates, which is the big overarching concept of wingman. Wingman is not only for work. I would hope you understand that concept. Wingman is not only for work. I want you to name a situation off duty where if you had a wingman, you would have had it a lot easier when facing some type of problem that you had. It can be as small or as big, whatever you feel comfortable to share.
So like thinking about when I went to college and you're on campus and it's pretty big, and I went like in downtown Birmingham, so it's like a city, and you don't know where anything is, you get lost every day. So if I had a wingman there, that would have saved me a lot of stress, kept me from being late a few days until I figured out where I was going.
So it applies even off duty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? You're trying to get to a destination and you have no idea how to get there. Mm-hmm. And you would need a wingman that knows that destination to help you out, so you don't have that wasted time or effort. By yourself?
Well, I think that the wingman policy, it's such a broad but useful thing to value and keep in mind, because there are a lot of real-world big issues that it ties into, because having a wingman with you can also prevent sexual assault, like very important, things that happen. They happen in the military, they happen in the real world. So having somebody with you can also keep you safe, because again, we're all being held to this standard. So you always need to be looking out for the people around you, for your safety, for your well-being. So.
Awesome. Safety, right? Safety is just as important as well. I'll give you my 2 cents that I've learned in the 14 years. Early on in my career, I was not the best wingman. I got in a lot of trouble. I've done things that did not fulfill the standard. So you can say I was substandard as an airman. And I own to those mistakes for not seeking a wingman and going through the first couple years of my Air Force in a down path, a decline. Which meant I wasn't working out unless I was told to work out. I wasn't eating right. Energy drinks weren't that big back then, but eating junk food because it was convenient, and then sleep. Watching too much TV at night when I should be focusing on waking up early to study in tech school or to get ready for my job when I PCS'd out of here. Sleep was super crucial in my life, and I wish I put more emphasis to that, because now that I have a lot of wingmen to help me out, I have learned that the food you put in your body, the rest that you're supposed to have, and the exercise you need will only make you better, to feel better, to be more active. And the wingmen that I have keep me accountable to make sure that I follow those principles so that I can be in the best tip-top shape. Because in something that you guys may have learned or been exposed to is the National Defense Strategy. And in that National Defense Strategy, they talk about building a lethal force. And that's us. We are that lethal force. Now, if I'm not getting sleep, I'm not getting exercise, and I'm not putting in the right food in my body, then I can't be lethal. It doesn't make sense. So it's important that those things that I failed as airman, I correct for the future. So that leads to our next main point, Wingman 365. Wingman 365 is a 24/7, 365 days a year concept, which means it happens on duty, and we talked about a little bit off duty. So it's all around. It doesn't matter where you are, what status you're in, what rank you're in, or what assignment that you have. Wingman applies everywhere. So we're going to talk about some Wingman 365 concepts. Now, Wingman 365. Now we're going to talk about the flashcards. As you know, I'm a Korean cryptologic language analyst. I speak Korean. I grew up speaking a little bit of Korean before I joined, but I learned a lot in my tech school. Been to 4 assignments in my career, spent 7 years in Korea, and learned that it's very different working in the United States and working overseas. Especially the culture and the beliefs of the people around you that aren't Americans, you have to adapt. Now, the Wingman 365, in 14 years, I have built a relationship. You talked about it before, the off-duty, where you need to be accountable for other people. We will now watch a video that talks about my personal wingman at Goodfellow Air Force Base. He is Technical Sergeant Gabriel Anderson. He works for the 312 Training Squadron as a fire instructor. And he is a personal wingman to me that keeps me accountable to make sure that I'm on the right path. And we discussed in that video about the wingman concept.
Technical Sergeant Gabriel Anderson. I currently work at the 312th Training Squadron, so Lewis F. Garland Fire Academy at Goodfellow Air Force Base as an instructor. I've been in the military for just over 9 years. Prior to being here, I was at Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas. And during my tenure there, I'd done a couple tours. One of them I was in Kuwait and forwarded to Jordan, and the other one I was in Iraq. Grew up in the Northwest, born in Portland, Oregon, was raised in Vancouver, Washington, right over the water, and then moved down to a smaller town on the coast of Oregon. So on my mom's side, I have 6 siblings, and on my dad's side, I have 3 siblings. So I have a lot of family members and my wife. We've been married for almost 4 years.
Wingman means a promise, a pledge, and a commitment between airmen.
I like the definition, but it's nothing that's actually done. It's not like an oath where you consciously make that agreement, right, but it is a value. It's something that we do hold true for everybody. There's so many of them, really. It's a concept. And it reminds me of going back to fighter pilot. And really, it's just you have the back of your fellow airmen. You have the right mind and intentions for them. You want the best for them. So some of the examples that brought up were kind of reactive, but even then, what proactive approaches can I take to ensure that their well-being, their health, their care is being taken care of for? What are their blind spots? What can I address early on so that they don't have to deal with the situation later on? One of the big things, specifically when we say wingman, is I feel like that's Air Force concept, but it's a parallel to what the Army says. They have battle buddies. And here in this environment, 17th Training Wing, we do work with joint partners. You need somebody with you to take care of you, somebody with you to have your back, somebody to ensure that if something goes on, they're there with you. You have somebody to depend on, to lean to help you out. And that's one of the big things. A second one is integrity. You need candidness. You need honesty within a wingman. Not just somebody who's willing to tell you what you want to hear or tell you the textbook answer necessarily. You got the legal, ethical, moral component to it, but a friend, someone who's going to tell you how it is, someone who's going to tell you because they care about you in your career and you as an individual. They're going to be honest with you and they're going to tell you what I would have to say pertaining to this. Or if I put myself in your shoes, this is what I would do. So that level of honesty, even when people don't want to hear it, because oftentimes we'll go to one another. Being able to differentiate is important. A lot of people just want someone to listen to them. They want someone to concur with them. But at the end of the day, a wingman is willing through that tough time to have that courage to tell them the truth, tell them how it is, despite the fact that it may ruin a relationship, somebody may get in trouble. Having that integrity, being reliable, kind of like you mentioned before, just being honest. That's definitely a huge characteristic. One of my first shirts taught me this, and it wasn't directly, but he put me on the spotlight when one of my troops was in trouble. He had to go out and he had to pull weeds. So I just got off 48-hour shift, and the shirt called me. "What are you doing?" "About to head home." "How's your airman doing?" "Well, I talked to him yesterday. He seems to be doing pretty well." "So what's he doing right now?" "It's a good question. I'm not certain." He said, "Why don't you go pay him a visit?" Not only while I was working, but also off duty. Shirt would have me go out and check on my airman and be with my airman, despite the fact that he was getting punished to learn from and so that they could rehabilitate and change that behavior. He said, "Hey, I want you to go out there with him and to learn about myself and to not just simply say, you're in trouble for your actions. But I'm here with you in this moment and it's going to be all right." Yeah, so when I was deployed in Iraq, there was a saying, and it was, "If not me, then who?" So take that opportunity, take the 2 seconds when the opportunity presents itself, get that ball rolling. You don't have to have all the answers to be a great wingman. You just have to be willing to take the moment and care for the individual. Put them in front of yourself. Think, if I was in that scenario, how would it feel? What would I be going through? What could be going through their mind? Why is it important? Because though I don't see it first person, it's important to them, and that's why it matters. Because without them, without me, I can't do anything. So each and every individual matters, and that's why it's important to be a good wingman.
All right, so now we've watched this video of my personal wingman, and you've learned his personal experiences. I'd like to touch upon the story that he shared about his subordinate, his airman, that got in a little trouble and had to pull weeds, and his supervisor had to assist. Now you learn that Sergeant Anderson got off a 48-hour shift. It's a lot of hours. A lot of hours on duty. So I can imagine how tired and exhausted he is. And he was told to check on his airman that he is responsible for. And he met up with his airman and he assisted. And Sergeant Anderson wasn't in trouble. But he was there for the airman. And instead of counseling the airman and saying, "You did a bad job, don't ever make that mistake," what do? He shared how to be better, how to avoid situations like that. And that's important because it's never too late to let somebody know that they're on the wrong path. Now, if you didn't know who I was, and you saw me on the troop walk or somewhere on base, and I did not have my hat on, did not have my cover on, I'm just walking around, what would you do?
I would let you know for sure.
You would let me know for sure.
Yeah. People have had to do that to me when I first got here. I would forget it.
Respectfully.
Yeah. And I appreciate it. I was never like, don't tell me what to do. Because I was like so overwhelmed with everything. I didn't even think about my hat. But I had a couple people, look out for me. So I would return the favor.
Okay, so you would correct me on the spot.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then say you corrected me on the spot, and I was very angry, and I did not pay attention to you. What would that mean? What would be some signs that would tell you that I'm just going to ignore you?
Well, maybe if I repeated myself and you were still not engaging, then I'd be like, oh, okay.
And what
He's
would you
not
do?
interested, but I'm trying to prevent you from getting in trouble because I think we've all been there. We've all made little mistakes like that. So I would probably try to communicate that to you, like, hey, I'm just trying to do you, this is improper, like, you need to put your hat on, because we all have to do it, so.
Now, there's times where we make little mistakes. And if I was angry at you for correcting me, it could be a bigger, deeper thing that could cause my anger. And it might not be because you're correcting me for not wearing my cover and I'm not following the rules and regulations. Right? So, a Wingman 365 concept means that it's not just about correcting, it's about also understanding what that person is going through. And you have to observe their behavior to see what is wrong with them or what issues they're going through to be able to help them out. So I want to hit on a specific topic. How can you help as a wingman? Yes, you talked about correcting me because I didn't have my cover on and walking around on base. So you stepped up and acted. Right? Step up and act is one step to do. Step one. You step up and act. It only takes one person to step up. I'm sure there was airmen all around that ignore me, like he's a sergeant. Yeah. Let's leave him be. But you would be willing to take that step and correct me on the spot to say, Sergeant, sir, whatever proper professional address you would have, and say, I think you forgot your cover and you're out in public. And I could have just been, out of thought and say, oh, thank you so much, and go and correct myself. Right? Maybe put my hand over my head, right? In the meantime. But it also shows that you're a leader. Because you're following the rules. You are willing to correct people for their behavior that are not appropriate to the standards of the Air Force. Instead of ignoring the fact, you took the charge and corrected someone. Now the second one, intervention. This is where the question that I presented you is really important. You stepped up, you acted to help someone, and you need to be able to observe signs of behavior that are potentially dangerous. Because some of the topics that you mentioned earlier about sexual assault, there's other things like suicides, domestic violence, child abuse. There are very serious subjects out there, and you have to be able to observe that behavior to see, is that person, that airman, that wingman potentially harming themselves or could potentially harm themselves. And you have to find those behavior and address it appropriately and quickly. Because if you don't intervene, then potentially something bad can happen. So it's important that when you're on duty, a lot of people may put on this uniform and act a certain way. I'm sure you've heard, put a mask on, right? You're hiding your true deep feelings and presenting yourself in a way that may not be genuine. But when you take this uniform off for the day, that you could have a pretty bad situation. And no one would know because you're in uniform, you're masking that pain. So it's important, that wingman concept of keeping someone accountable for something small like a cover issue to something like a serious pain that they're going through. So it's important in the off-duty side, the whole 365 concept, to make sure that everybody is well taken care of. And that's what a wingman is, right? I began this with wingman is a promise, a pledge, and a commitment between airmen. And don't think that it means the junior enlisted. We're talking about everybody in the Air Force. Written with a big A. That we need to be able to be there for one another and take care of one another. Now I have some good tips that I would like to share with y'all of how to make sure that your understanding of wingman is in line with what we've talked about today. First one is we are all part of a much larger team. Even though I've met you for the first time, I have a promise and a pledge and a commitment to make sure that I am a wingman for you. So from today on, Sergeant Han is a wingman for you, and for all of you. As we encounter and build relationships with one another, I am a wingman to those that I encounter with. And I present that wingmanship with open arms. So we also talked about the junior enlisted responsibilities to be highly productive members. So even though I am in the NCO tier, the non-commissioned officer tier, I have a responsibility to make sure that you become highly productive members of the Air Force. So it's my duty, along with other NCOs, to make sure that junior enlisted members learn the job effectively, to make decisions, like you said when you came to technical training, that a lot of the responsibility of decision making was placed on you as an individual. So in basic military training, they told you what to do to help you understand the requirements, the military requirements that we have to adapt to, and then as you come here and move on, now you have that individual responsibility to make sure you're doing the right thing. Someone's not telling you all the time to make those decisions for you. So for me to, along with the other NCOs, to make airmen highly productive members, we have to make sure that we give them the tools, we equip them with the tools to be successful. The knowledge to have a better comprehension and understanding of what is expected of airmen when it comes to wingmanship. Now, the last thing I want to share is we all must be prepared to step up and lead when required. Just as we must all be ready to follow once a decision is made. We need to be able to step up and lead just as much as we follow the rules when a decision is made by the people above us. So I want you to take the concept that leaders need a teammate. Leaders are great followers. And that because we are given those responsibilities to make individual decisions, whether that's good or bad, we need to take ownership and make sure that we account for one another, that accountability piece, to compromise with one another as a family so that we support one another. Now, as conclusion, wrapping this all up, I want you to talk about 2 things each of what stood out from our lesson. Who wants to go first?
I think one of them is the family aspect of it. Like before I joined the military, I've always cared a lot about making sure I do a good job at work and that I'm, doing the right thing and I'm making my supervisor proud. But I wouldn't really, if someone else there wasn't doing a good job, I was like, well, it's out of my hands, But now that you're here, you're responsible for everybody. If they fail, then you fail, So you're more than just coworkers, you are more of a family. And I think that feels really real here, more than when I was a civilian.
Okay, there's one. Now you have to share one.
I think something that's really important to take away is that idea that even leaders need a wingman, because at the end of the day, we all started from somewhere and we are all always being held to the same standards. We all agreed to the same things when we swore in. So, you know, we all need to look out for each other, because in order to grow as people, we need to exchange ideas always with each other. So it doesn't matter if you are a junior enlisted airman and you need to correct or, you know, converse with someone of a higher ranking, like you know, you always need to be there for each other no matter what. So I think that's something important to take away.
Okay. Now, your second big takeaway. I know we talked about so much.
I hate to jump on the family thing again, but it's like you were saying, if someone reacted to you poorly and you're just looking out for them, you know, before I would have been like, oh, well, I tried to help him. If he's not going to be receptive, then that's his call. But now, I guess it's your responsibility to, I guess, dig a little deeper and see, you know, why are they having such a bad day? Because they could be going through something really deep or really strong that you know, that you could have just walked right past. Maybe they need a wingman. Maybe they need someone to talk to. So I guess taking that responsibility deeper than just the surface level, you know, you do the bare minimums and actually try to connect with people and look out for them. Even if, you know, it may not be something work related, it may be personal, like in their life, you know, you're still kind of responsible for looking out for them.
Right.
Great answer.
And I think an important value that you learn in the military is compromise. That's such an important topic, because you have, of course, you're always going to have your personal wants, but at the end of the day, we're all part of the same mission. And so you sometimes have to put your needs to the side in order to help the bigger picture, and everybody needs to learn how to do that and to make our team flourish and work well together, because we're all part of the same thing. So if we fail together, but if we succeed together. That's always true. So
Great answer. Great answer. Now, why I wrote these cards? Because I want to share something that I learned with y'all. There's a lot of years between us, the amount of service. But the big concept of Wingman is we're there for one another. So with my 14 years and less than 1 year experience, that leads us to 15 years. That's a lot of years. And when you compare yourself to other wingmen, to chief master sergeants, to colonels, and even down to senior airmen, you can start racking up a lot of years. And we need to be a wingman for one another. So I wrote these down so that we get to know a little bit more about each other, how long we've been in, what job that we have, where we come from, so that that's just a stepping stone to building even a deeper relationship with one another. So the next time we meet out in public, or any airman that has watched this and learned about us, bring up some stuff that we discussed so that we can share even more. Because the wingman concept is an evolving and growing process. Just like you mentioned, we need to connect and grow with one another. Because if we fail, we all fail together, and if we succeed together. That's truly important to understand, that wingman does not just apply to followers, it also applies to leaders, and it's not a only on duty concept, that it's applied on and off duty 365 days a year. So that concludes our lesson of Wingman. I hope you enjoyed and got to learn a little bit more than what you learned from basic military training. And I hope you take this and share it with one another that have not been exposed to this type of information. Thank you.